Sometimes we think that business is just about the numbers, strategy, and the hustle. But the real story often begins with something deeper, the quiet awareness that how we show up as the human determines how we lead, build, and connect. So today we are diving into that intersection, dear listeners, where business meets emotional intelligence and success meets the self awareness. Because let's be very honest, in a world that celebrates grind culture, not enough people talk about the emotional muscles it takes to lead with empathy and stay grounded in your values. Yep. And joining me today is someone who's redefining what that looks like. Please welcome my guest, Bradley Taylor. Welcome to the show, Bradley.
Hey, thank you, Avik. I appreciate you. That was an awesome intro, by the way, dude. Way to set the tone.
Thank you so much, yeah, Bradley. And uh, I mean, before we delve deep into the discussion, I'd definitely love to introduce you to all the listeners. Uh, so, dear listeners, like Bradley is a business coach, entrepreneur, and the founder of Colors and the Donor Trap. So, from creating community rooted enterprises to empowering the BIPOC and queer entrepreneurs, he has built success not just from the hustle, but from heart. So I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. I definitely love to get into the discussion. And Bradley, welcome to Mind Over Masculinity, and it's really honor to have you here today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Avik. It's such a pleasure being here. I appreciate you.
Amazing. So your story started with the donuts, literally, and evolved into something much bigger, like the community empowerment and the business education. So when you look back now, what role do you think that the emotional intelligence played in their journey?
Oh, I feel like it's kind of funny because the donuts kind of are a mirror in like life, like timeline of like my life was directly correlated with it. I started in college and, just going from there for the last like decade. But I would say it's played a huge role in it, and I can kind of succeed like literally pinpoint the jumps of like my business of when it really started to take off as I started to really invest in myself and in self growth and everything.
Mm. So, I mean, when was the moment like that you realized that the business wasn't just about the bottom line, but uh, about understanding yourself and others as well?
Yeah, I would say it I first got a glimpse of that when we really became like a real business. And what I mean by that is when we actually transitioned from doing like these little pop-ups and so forth to actually having a brick and mortar and having like a lease and obligations of hiring staff and really get ramping up our operations and expansion. And it was at that moment that I was like, dude, I am not like I can't really approach things and people based off the way that how I used to work because it was just me. And now I have to really build and be more aware of the people who are in like this ecosystem, aka the donut trap, and how they interact with my business and also how we interact with the community too as well, aka our customers.
Got it. So like, I mean, it's really such a powerful shift because, like, from doing business to being business consciously, I think a lot of entrepreneurs miss that turning point because they are chasing the external success without realizing that it starts internally.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a great part of it. Yeah.
No, you hit it right on the hammer, a bit.
Uh, maybe other entrepreneurs will hit me out. So,
No, it's so true, dude. Like I especially when I'm coaching other people or advising, entrepreneurs who would be or currently, I always tell them that
right,
your business only goes as far as you yourself can, because like you said, that it's the internal versus external. And sometimes it could create a really volatile feedback loop if you're not very aware of how it's going. And what I mean by that is like, you know, you can have a successful business, it's growing, but you could be really a horrible person where your employees are like not like they don't like you, but the reason they're there is because you're paying them. But you're being validated by all this external success, and you're like, okay, well, I could just become a crappier person because I'm seeing the numbers come in. But at some point, that's gonna implode on you, and we've seen it play out plenty of times, like across the news or social media, whatever, and other ways that we don't know. So it's like, that starts with, acknowledging yourself and really digging deep internally and fixing those different things.
exactly, I agree. So, like many leaders equate the emotional intelligence with being soft, but in reality, it's the one of the hardest skills to master. Uh, so how has the emotional intelligence helped you navigate the tough conversations, the leadership conflicts, or I'd say even the personal self doubt as a founder?
Yeah. Well, I would say first to even allow the space for our emotional intelligence to grow, I had to really just get rid of the ego, just complete ego death, and realize that it's not about you, stop making it about you. And once I really saw that really start to go away, open up the space for a lot of those things to really come in and really grow and cultivate that. And emotional intelligence definitely being one of them, where it's like, for instance, if let's say a worker or whatever,
Yeah.
just royally screws up. And like, let's say like that worker has been with me for like 5 years. And it's like, I can call and be like, dude, you've been with me for like 5 years. You already know this. Like, how can you make this? Blah, blah, and completely just go into them. But like, instead, it's just like taking the time to step back and really just look at the whole frame of view and really see what the root cause is as to why this need to happen. Like, what space was the worker in to really like do commit this mess up that they probably like that's been super easy and something that they repeated over and over and over throughout the years and try to understand maybe there's a deeper meaning behind that. And really allowing them the space to really just like communicate with me without feeling like they're gonna be attacked and being open and transparent about things so that we will really get to the root cause and obviously acknowledge, and make them be accountable of the action, but still deliver in a way that's like, "Hey, I'll focus on this, and next time, like, we'll just put this a priority." So, yeah, you know?
I agree. I totally agree on this. So, uh, I mean, do you think that the men in leadership, especially those raised with the traditional notions of masculinity, struggle more to access empathy and vulnerability in their business decisions?
Oh, yeah. I definitely realize that. I mean, especially here in the US, it's like it's bred in our culture that it's like, men don't cry, they don't acknowledge their feelings or show any type of visible like self-doubt or anything. It's like you just you know, push that downward more inside you, and just show face. And or you just like deal with it in a quote unquote masculine way, like yelling, demeaning people or whatever, stuff. So yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So, I mean, it's so real. Like, vulnerability is often seen as a weakness, obviously, but yet it's exactly what builds trust and long-term loyalty. It's
Yeah.
it's what to say? Like, it's ironic that the thing we fear showing is usually the thing that makes us human enough to lead. So,
Mhm.
definitely, definitely, and ooh, I mean, if you talk about the self-awareness, like. You have built a business that align deeply with your identity and the values. Uh, BIPOC empowerment, the inclusion, the community building. How do you personally check in with yourself to make sure that your actions and decisions stay aligned with that mission? So, what is it?
Yeah, well, I have this thing that I always do that like I usually try to do it at the end of the day or definitely like for sure end of the week where I conduct a self audit, you know, and within that auditing is going and reflecting on a lot of like high points and highlights of that day or that week and really try and really just create a space where I can really acknowledge what happened in these different scenarios, like whether good or bad, and what I could do to really improve upon them and keep it as organic as possible and very, very like, raw. And so really just create by channeling and conducting that self audit has really helped me a lot. So in making a lot of those decisions like for the business and how and what that looks like as we work within the community and other particular partners and a lot of different assets.
Yep. Yep. Uh, so, like, when you realize you have drifted, maybe said yes to too much or lost sight of
Yeah, yeah.
your why. Like, so what's your process of getting back to on the track?
Oh, yes, dude. I think one, always turn it inward to my partner, my like partner Ashley, who's very grounded and such an amazing person and offers such great perspective. I think really first just check in with her because she can also see she has the front row to see how I'm moving, how I'm shaking, like and stuff like that. And then also is she's also invested in it. She feels directly those decisions that I make, good or bad, because we share a household and we also have a family. So really just checking in with her, really her giving me great insight. I would say, second, again, always giving conducting that self audit. And then to reinforce a lot of these things, really just therapy, dude. Therapy all day.
I agree. I totally agree. So,
Mhm.
um, and I'd say that I mean, that's such a grounded one because I think a lot of founders experience that quite misalignment, but I mean, they're achieving but not fulfilled. And
Mhm.
which reminds us that self awareness is not just about the kind of reflection, but it's all the course correction. So, and yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like you work with emerging entrepreneurs, especially those from the underrepresented backgrounds. So, what emotional barriers do you see, like most often holding them back? Uh, and if so, like how can emotional intelligence help them rise above those? What do you say?
Yeah, and I feel like that's a really deep question because especially those who come from, uh, people of color who come from those different backgrounds, it's so many different factors to include in that. But, one of them being, your environment and the people that you're surrounded around. There's this if everyone's emotional intelligence is capped off at a certain level, like let's say everyone who's in your circle or who you interact with has like barely a high school education or whatever, like that starts to become normalized and you don't realize it like at the level that you're at, because everyone is cool is collectively at that same level. So it's really hard to have a measuring stick and dictate, where you're at unless you kind of venture out of that circle and start to really expand and look into other different places and people who are operating at a higher level. But one barrier that I always see is like really building that confidence first for them to really be able to be like, hey, like I have the confidence to really first look at myself and really just like deal with that and acknowledge all the stuff that I'm dealing with and that I want better for myself. I think those two things correlate very closely because once they can identify themselves and respect themselves, then that's where we really are able to really start channeling in that self awareness, where it's like, hey, you have a friend who you know who's kind of doing things and moving a certain way that isn't really to your benefit or good for your health or anyone, and having the self awareness, but like I'm going to have to, you know, distance myself from this person or those core people who it's really hard because like they helped me through a lot of hard times and stuff like that in certain ways. But once you start to realize like, hey, I'm on this growth trajectory and this is not where I want to be, that's where also that confidence and still will really help whole that notion of like self-awareness where it's like, okay, let me I'm confident in myself. Now I can keep going and building these steps in self-awareness because as you know, once you really start to grow, it gets really lonely sometimes because like you start to see all these people who are close with you who sometimes are aligned with what you want and a lot of times not. And it gets lonely to have to like just go on your own island and starting over and building up like that other like network of people who are at the level or higher that you want to be at.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And um, also, like, do you think that the access to emotional education should be a kind of core part of the entrepreneurship training and not just a kind of nice to have thing?
Oh yeah, I think that's like should be the root of like the whole program.
Yeah.
It's like we talked about before, it can only go as far as you're able to take it, you know. And I don't care how many executives or how many managers you have in between, like you and the business, if those people are getting all their information and orders from you. So you can't really, I don't care how many buffers you have. It starts with this having putting in emotional intelligence should really make up like almost like 40%, if not more, of like the core met business of like your model.
Yep, yep, exactly. And wow, nothing. I mean, exactly like we train people to pitch and plan, but really to pause and process as well. So emotional intelligence might be the missing piece that turns ambition into sustainability. So
Mhm,
that's really lovely. And I'd love to talk about one of the contradictory part as well. But uh, like some people might argue that too much emotional awareness in business actually slows down the decision making, and
mhm,
that emotions cloud judgment instead of clarifying it. So,
mhm.
what would you say to that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get it. We hear that all the time that like it's nothing personal, it's just business. And I think that's totally true for sure. There are times when it's like, hey, like I actually like this person, but as the whole system of business and the recourse of this going, this isn't going to work. I think where it comes into is how that person decides to, engage in or that type of scenario. Like you could do a super petty way in a cutthroat way, or you can also do a emotional operate at a high emotional intelligence. You can literally just conduct it in a very like cordial manner. Like always one way that I always like to prepare is like people break up all the time, but you can have a really toxic, gross breakup, or you can have a really cordial breakup, do a nice conversation, and just meet each other where it is and just acknowledge, like, hey, this isn't going to work out. So I think that's the X factor in what and how, sometimes people conduct their business. Like there's always two paths. So yeah.
Exactly. So, and also, like, have you ever had to turn off the empathy momentarily, like to make a tough business call that might not feel good but was necessary?
Yeah, I would say a lot of that was really I was one recently, in having to let an employee go. And what I saw was like, you know, they were being pretty bringing a very negative created into a very negative space through just like their energy and the way that their whole perspective on how they engage with the world. And I tried to give them a little bit of buffer just to see how things were through conversation. But I think like by the third time, I was just like, you know what? Like by listening to the way that this person really responds mostly to this type of tone or conversation or so, uh, it's this is the way that it has to be done. So literally just go and just kind of almost not shutting off emotion, but kind of approaching in a very cold way that like, hey, this is done. Like can't happen. And then obviously give them reasons why, because everyone was um has I think everyone deserves that. But really just it was no emotion really in my tone or anything. It was very flat and really just deliver in the way I was like, yo, this is this is done. And this, and why, and give some examples and of days and times that have come that this happened, and literally just left that dot and just let didn't really leave any room for any type of you know conversation.
Exactly. So, wow. And like, how do you personally guard against that? I mean, making sure that your empathy stays authentic and not just the branding as well.
Yeah. Um, that's a fair question. I think for me, it almost just naturally comes. I'm naturally really an empathetic person. Um, And, sometimes I do see people who would like try to manipulate that and take advantage of that. But by guarding that and setting clear boundaries, to raise like flags as people, depending on what that person does or what's happening to me, uh, really is a good way to forecast or get more better foresight into what might happen. But dang, what was the question? I'm so sorry, Ava.
So I was just saying, like, I mean, how you personally guard that, like, you make sure that your empathy always stays authentic and it's not
Oh yeah.
just kind of branding.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely and also just really just engaging in stuff that's really aligns well with who I am as a person. I think that's really the biggest thing because if it's something that I'm passionate about and really care about and turns out it's also really good for business and, myself, I think that will organically just kind of keep that flow. And like you said, protecting that, I wouldn't really choose to engage in any type of manners that go against my moral compass or what I stand for.
True. Agree on this. Yes. And one advice, if you'd like to give it to the listeners, what that will be.
Mm. Therapy, really, just get a therapist. Like, I know that's super cliche, but the thing is, I think having a good outlet of a person who could see things from a non-biased perspective and also offers the best and best positive way to process things that are happening to you in a um, positive manner, really, it has been great for me. Like where some people just turn to friends and close people who like looking at their record, have no business delivering any type of advising at all. Like I would not if I was going through a breakup, and I always like to use these metaphors because I feel like it's something that everyone has fundamentally experienced. Uh, but if I'm going through a breakup or in a bad relationship, I'm not gonna go talk to my friend who can't keep a partner for more than a week or is in currently a really really toxic relationship. Like they're not vetted to give me good advice as far as how to be in a good situation. So, really just vetting the person and make sure that they're in a good place to really give you good advice and deliver that in a good positive manner that will benefit you.
True. So, what I love about this conversation, dear listeners, that uh, Bradley, is that it reminds us that the emotional intelligence is not a kind of trend, it's a transformation. And what turns good leaders into good ones and the good businesses into ones, right? So, because when we learn to feel as deeply as we think, we stop reacting and stop responding as well. So, we stop managing people and start connecting with them. So, to everyone who is listening, let this episode be a reminder that self awareness is not the self indulgence, it's the self leadership. The stronger your emotional core, the further your vision can reach. So, Bradley, thank you so much for being here and for the work that you are doing to redefine what strength and success can look like. So, thank you so much for that. And uh, also, if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the great medium to connect?
Yeah, they can just connect with me on my Instagram at the Donut Trap at Bradley or the at the Donut Trap or IG, and that's usually the best way for people to just get in touch with me. Send a simple DM, and we'll be more than happy to connect.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, what I'll do is I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And with this hope, until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and remember that the mastery begins in the mind. So, this is Mind Over Masculinity. I'm your host, Avik, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Thank you so much.
Also, hey, like that was fun.